And this is part two for Saturday morning here on what is it, October 31st, I guess, right? Isn't Sunday, November 1? So this is a continuation because I ran out of memory about healing the separation of divine light, and um, and I left out a few things because I simply ran out of time about an experience of why being with Patty Shine, who is a nurse family practitioner, because I had finished the University of Arkansas and was with a girl for 23 years to provide a safe place in which there would be no harm done to her, that she could heal. And in that process, when you're with somebody for that many years, of those frequencies, if you will, that you thus pick up through your own experiences, had an impact on me, along with the amount of stress and anxiety, if you will, of everything that I was collecting as data and information, being in an energy field at the University of Arkansas. Okay. The result of that ended up causing my blood pressure to go up, an enormous amount of electrical resistance in the blockages that I had on my circuits. I ended up ballooning out from being 6 foot and 175 pounds, which is my normal weight, to 6 foot and 292 pounds. And then a doctor wanted to put me on all this AI meds. And of course, naturally, the light within me realized that that's insanity. Okay, so you know, or at least I knew on a spiritual level exactly where I needed to go. And I needed to go back to be with her and clean it up. Which essentially means pushing all the metadata, all the garbage, all the toxic stuff. In other words, all of the frequencies and the densities that represent all of those experiences, all of the experiences that she was holding on. Remember when, and I realize that a lot of you probably don't know this, but for example, when I'm with a woman who's been sexually abused from childhood forward on, even though she was 30% Cherokee, okay, and I'm making love to this girl, or my energy field is in her energy field, I'm downloading all her stuff, okay? All of those lower frequency density DNA experiences that are in her, I'm picking all those up. And then I began to realize how in my own energy field, a result of all that metadata, which is actually what it is, that represents all of those experiences that can be measured mathematically, okay, in the field, okay? Everything can be described as information, as energy, can be quantified and qualified the same way that we do a quantification and a qualification on the electromagnetic light spectrum. Much in the same way, if you understand how gas chromatography works, or has what's known as mass spectrometry, mass spec, which essentially means we're measuring the mass, which is the weight of the density of the particles that are what it is that we're measuring in order to determine what's there. That's how we do that. Remember, I went through a postgraduate level science program in environmental engineering. So that's getting into the science of doing what's called a bioelectrical chemical analysis. So one of the instruments that we use to determine, for example, if we're going to take a sample, a water sample, a soil sample, a sample of anything that's in the grid, you're taking a sample much the same way that a MRI is taking a 3D image of your energy field, okay, and is able to produce a picture. And they look at the picture to see what's happening in a 3D image, okay? So without going off on another tree, what it simply means is that mass spectrometry means you're able to measure essentially the density, okay? So when you sort of translate that in the same way that when I experience, if you will, the DNA experiences that represent her film strip, her life history, her lifespan of everything that she's experienced has been downloaded. Okay? So an intuitive empath realizes that all that information represents all those experiences, okay, are within my energy field. Okay? And as a result of that, you can imagine the amount of mass density I gained as a result of that. Okay? So I know exactly where I gotta go burn it off. That's exactly how we do it. Which just simply means you're gonna speed up, spin the Merkaba. Burn it all off, which means we're gonna use our heart, connected to her heart, okay? And now we're gonna spin and use the light wheel, okay, to burn it off and get rid of it. So in the process of doing that, I went to Patty Shine and said, listen, I want to write a book about this process because I know how we do this. And if I can do this and get it to go viral, then you can imagine what we can do on a planetary wide scale. She thought that was a great idea. I was 54, 53, 54, right around in there when this took place, when I finished graduate school the second time around at the University of Arkansas when I got my master's in education. Okay? And so it was time to go heal. So I came back to Oregon because I know certain places that I can go to where I'm with her where this will occur, okay? Which in this case happened to be in a place up on the border between the Klamath National Forest and the Shasta Trinity National Forest, up on a place that is behind an old little gold town called Callahan and another little town next to it called Etna. And if you go up the road there, there's a place up there that actually is very reminiscent. It's known as the Klamath Knot because it is the topography that was formed there was formed as a result of two geographical sort of combinations. One is geographical uplift, okay, granitic uplift, if you will, granite, and then you have volcanic. And it's called the knot because of the way that the rock sort of swirls in the way in which, like a spiral, but you get a combination of different soil types there that support a much wider diversity of flowers, flora, and fauna that you find up there. And that's a place called Carter Summit. And when you go through that area down into a place where the Scott and the Salmon River come together, that's known as the Forks of the Salmon. And if you didn't know any better, you'd think you were somewhere in the Swiss Alps. Okay? It's one of the few places where you can, in California anyway, where you can experience much like being in Europe. Okay? In the Swiss and the French Alps. And the High Sierras. Okay? With the granite that you have in the High Sierras. Even though when you go back and look at the way that the plates had shifted over time, what's known as Pangea, and where California and that part of Oregon actually sort of slammed together. As I remember it, it's separating again now. Some of the geodetic surveys or geologic surveys, the USGS service was putting up some of their data that Patty got, and showed us how it was torquing towards the Pacific Ocean, meaning that Washington and Oregon was torquing in the other way. In other words, it's wanting to leave, separate from the North American plate. And then you have another section up over where Nova Scotia is, where it's lifting up, twisting, as I remember, in a downward motion, like towards New York and Pennsylvania. And so you can see how the uplift and the downturn and the turning on both sides of the continent are shifting and changing geographically. Okay, so the point with Patty Shine was to go in and heal and document the changes over time. And she did that. So what she was looking at primarily was what's known as your basal metabolic rate, which means essentially your metabolites, which means how fast are you able to get rid of all the corrupted data, which is represented by lower mass density consciousness experiences, which essentially means I'm getting rid of all her stuff. Okay, and returning to what? Purity. Purity of spirit, purity of your energy. And when you're with her, she will do that because she is pure of spirit, she is pure of heart, and that's Gaia. Okay? She's my healer. The girl on the planet. Which is why it kills me when they hurt her. because she is the girl on the planet. This is the home of the human heart. So sometimes when I listen to this other guy that was on indoctrination, who was in the Hollywood movie industry, and he's got a fairly large following. I listened to him just a little while ago, and he lives up in Topanga Canyon. He talked about Will Geer, who used to be on that program with Walton family. Remember that? And they built an outdoor amphitheater, and he said, I went to a circle of drums. Well, I'm clan, which is White Bear Clan, so as I've mentioned many times before, a circle of light is a circle of drums. Okay, the tribes have been doing this forever. Because on this planet with a circle of light, 360 degrees, you got a heart, which is a torus field, which is a powerful vortex. When you're doing a circle of drums, which is a circle of light, we do that for a very specific spiritual ritual reason. We celebrate our life with love, which is the heart wheel. And we have a heart wheel with a circle, the heart wheel in that circle, which has all that love, which is honoring the matriarch, the girl on the planet, which is Gaia, to bring her spirit out and bring all the living spirit out that is in nature. Okay? That's the purpose of the circle of light, which is a circle of drums, which represents the circle of light in our heart wheel. Simple stuff. So he did that last night. Now, what I thought was kind of funny is when he said that he did that, when he was explaining that, he wasn't explaining it with a big smile on his face, where what he was experiencing doing a circle of drums, which is a circle of light, which is a circle of love, which raises your state of vibration because you're experiencing and thus celebrating the love that you're experiencing through your heart, which is that circle of light, which is that circle of love, which is that circle of drums, to bring all the living in spirit, which is living in that light. We are healing each other with a circle of light, which is the circle of drums. Remember I mentioned that at Kahana Beach on the Big Island? This is native tribal stuff. Okay, that means you are celebrating what love is through your heart the same way that the tribes and the clans always have forever with Gaia. This is the home of the human heart, the heart wheel, 360 degrees. Okay. So I was sort of hoping maybe I would see a bigger smile. So as it turned out with Patty Shine, what ended up happening was I'd gotten my weight down to 163 pounds. Okay. My physical ability was able to load up a truck of 4,000 pounds of firewood every afternoon, burn most of it throughout the course of the night, and I mentioned why we do that anyway, right? In bear country. And I had wanted to title the book 53 going on 33 because I felt like I'd taken 20 years off the physical body. My pulse rate was down to 51, which means my heart only needed to pump 51 times, although it's not a pump. It simply means 51 pulses is enough to supply enough oxygenation and electrons to every single cell in my body to fire it up. Which means now I'm running at full strength. My battery packs and my muscles got all the energy they need to lift all that wood and put it in a truck at that age as if I was 33 again. So she recorded all the changes that took place when my blood pressure was back down to like 123 over what was it, 68, and my basal metabolic rate was a man of 32 years of age. Okay? That's what Gaia does. So I wanted to establish and make a movie and show this is what healing will do when you're in nature with Gaia. I never got a chance to put a lot of my energy into that because no sooner had I accomplished that objective when the transmission in my truck went out in the middle of a snowstorm over in a place called Hat Creek on the Lhasa National Forest. And there I was at 3 o'clock in the morning. What was I, 75 miles from Susanville, California, in the middle of a blizzard. And nearly froze my ass off that particular night until a CHP came by with a snowplow and picked my butt up out of there. And guess where that truck ended up with? About 450 plastic kits I collected over, 40 years of, I wanted to do a history of naval aviation, historical stuff. And that truck, I never did pick up that truck or that stuff. I just left it there, you know. And this is where we get into attachments. I don't, when you think of what an attachment is, it means that if I'm dragging a lot of stuff around with me and using it to hold it in my memory, then whatever density is represented by that which I'm holding onto as an attachment, it means I'm holding on to density that is in that dimension, and I don't want to do that because this is not my home. Not in the sense that you think. It's the consciousness, the density of the consciousness that you're most comfortable with. And the most comfortable density that I have is no density at all, which means pure spirit that is in that light. I'm not accustomed to being in a matter density body. Okay, I'm normally accustomed to being a free spirit where I motor using my infinite creative imagination to create things with as I go. That's the normal state in which I occupy in spirit with the light. Is constantly experiencing that which I'm producing and creating with my imagination as I move through the cosmos at a very high rate of speed. That's what I do. That's what I normally do. So I put the projector down to come into a lower density state of consciousness, which is extremely uncomfortable, and then find the best way to navigate through it and survive as long as you can, okay? In trying to impart and learn from what's happening here to restore the light as much as you can for the time in which we're here. Okay? So that means that we have to sort of know how we navigate through what I've always referred to as a distorted vampiric energy field. Okay? In which something is trying to program you or influence you to put into your memory things that don't serve us. And if you don't understand how this works, where you can look at what it is that you're doing, why it is that we're doing what it is that we do, that we realize that that are not serving us. But when you don't understand or you're not aware of how the programming is taking a place through communication technology, then you're simply not aware of what it is that is being recorded in your unconscious memory that causes us to react to certain situations that they know how to trigger, in which that behavioral response is draining the light in somebody else, which means the light is being drained in us. That's self-suicide. But it's self-suicide in a way in which we're not aware of how it happens, because the speed at which we're experiencing what has been recorded in the unconscious memory through another unit of consciousness that isn't running at the same speed of a higher density consciousness means that they're using their lower state of consciousness to program something into ours that is representative of the waves in which they use to experience who they are. They program into our unconscious memory. That's how they maintain what is known as vibration perception bandwidth channel alignment, which means that we're in alignment with a state of consciousness, okay, that is demonic. It's seeking to drain our light. So it records information in our unconscious memory that does what? Drain our own light by behaving towards others that does that, which means what I do to you, I do to me. That's the bidirectional mirror. So they program information into the unconscious memory to get us to do things that drains our own light and the light in others. Those are your programmers. They had them over there on the Big Island. I was even told exactly where they operate out of, using keyboards and communication technology. And those are known as drunning operations. That's MK Ultra. You know, Max Spears, when it took an enormous amount of time to go into all the different programs that they had. I think Project Monarch was one of them. Project Oak Tree was another one. And then the one that Karen Ann Luke McDonald, which is what these genetic Frankensteins have been working on for the last so many years called Project Panther. They keep track. I've got a chart. I don't have the ability to put it up here of all the damage they're doing to everybody's DNA. So what is it that heals our DNA? Remember what I put in the last video? The heart wheel. And when we're spending time with Gaia and spending time in nature and getting back into the heart wheel, one of the things that I realize that is hard for a lot of people to do, and that is to have a good cry, to release all of that electrical resistance, to release all of those traumatic experiences that we're holding on to that represent the pain that we're still holding on to. You know, which goes back to one thing that I mentioned before on the Big Island about the vehicle that I had borrowed that morning, went to go take care of a ticket because I wasn't back within 2 hours, because people are programmed to think in terms of a clock, because I got to be here at a certain period of time, and oh my God, if I'm not there at a particular period of time, oh my God, what am I going to lose? Okay, so that's called time card programming. We're programmed to the clock. Where does that clock start at? Childhood. Actually, before that. There are clocks in the DNA. I explained that once before. But the point is that because I was late coming back, all that anger, all that aggression that 3 people had dumped onto Nathan, Nathan now is carrying around all that anger and all that aggression, and he didn't diffuse it. He didn't burn it off and get rid of it, because he realized I had nothing to do with that, because we have our own responsibility of choosing what we want to experience. Because what we experience is based on frequency, the frequency of the energy communication. So there were beings that were communicating low frequency emotional states of energy that he thus was experiencing, he held on to. He held on to them all day long. And then what ended up happening later that night when we were in a circle around a campfire, I could read that he was still holding on to that and he wanted to dump it out to 5 other people. So when you're aware of, in a looking glass, that here's somebody in the future, in about 5 minutes from now, is going to attempt to lower everybody's light that is in that circle, I didn't want to see that happen, so I preempted it, which means before it was set in a time clock in which he was going to do it, I already knew exactly when he was going to do it, which was in 5 minutes. So I preempted it by saying, hey, Nathan, that's okay. Go ahead and release it right here. Stay within our heart. Everybody hold each other's hands. We're going to go into the heart, which is like a circle of light, which is the heart wheel, and we're going to diffuse this. We're going to heal that energy and allow you to go ahead. We all love each other here. It's okay. It's okay to release that energy. We know what happened. And he tried to get a lot of it out, but most of it got diffused. The other people in the circle realized what was going on because they didn't want to experience all that anger. They didn't want to experience the lower frequency emotional stuff. Okay? So the heart won that one. But you could feel, because I could censor what's known as vampiric consciousness that was present, that was there wanting to drain everybody's energy. That's the plasma field AI. That's the parasitic artificial intelligence that they weaponized on this planet to drain everybody's light. Okay? So this is why doing circle of lights, circle of drums is very, very effective. It's countering that. That's why I've always recommended, when was that, about a year ago, getting 150,000 people together in a circle of light, several circles of light, bringing out the spirit in Mother Earth and bringing out the spirit in nature to help clear all the dark energy, all the negative current that's trying to drain our batteries. And you'd be surprised what'll happen. I love you all.